Welcome, everybody, to another Friday continuing education class. It is the end of November, pretty much, right? We have like 5 days left. It's the last Friday in November, November 24th. So it's one of those days where you either have a lot of people showing up on a Zoom or you don't have hardly anybody because it's the day after a holiday. So I appreciate you spending some time with me today to learn more about doTERRA's essential oils. Now, our topic is Breathe Easy Asthma 101. And so my intention today is to inspire you to use natural remedies to manage this condition. Okay, so everybody here probably has breathe or has experience with it, right? But I'm curious, how many of you here, and drop it in the chat, how many of you here have been diagnosed with asthma? Or maybe you have children or a family member. Yeah, some of us, right? Now, many of you know my story when it comes to this disease. I have had asthma ever since I was a little child, and I'll share tidbits of it throughout our class. But I am not a doctor. But I do know that some people find relief from asthma symptoms through natural approaches, right? And so these can also include lifestyle factors like a healthy diet, staying hydrated, managing stress, and actually avoiding triggers like allergies or irritants that cause a flare up. So all of these statements that I'm going to be sharing today have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. The products here that we talk about are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. So that's my disclaimer, right? I'm going to be telling you about how it works in my life, but these are not any claims. Have to make sure I put that out there. So even though we're focused on the respiratory system today, I want you to remember that every system in the body is connected to each other, right? They all heal together, they all suffer together. It's a more holistic approach to healthcare that we want to use. And we want to remember that our emotions are directly going to affect our physical health as well. Hi, Marcia. Good to see you. So 3 oils that we're going to talk about today are Breathe, Air X, which are 2 blends, right? And then cardamom, which is a single oil. Now, if you have any other oils that help you with this condition, drop those in the chat and feel free to share. So we're going to have a short anatomy lesson. We're going to watch a short video to learn how our body, particularly the lungs, work, okay? And throughout the entire video, which I think is only about 3 minutes, I want you to intentionally take deeper breaths. I'm going to do it. Sometimes when you see somebody else doing it, it can help you, right? Maybe even apply some of the oils to encourage a greater intake of oxygen. Sometimes controlling an asthma attack can simply boil down to intentional breathing, paying much more attention to how we take oxygen in and how deep it's getting into our lungs. Okay, so I am going to share screen now and play this little video. It's a short TED Talk, and it's called How Do Lungs Work?
Tourists. Tourists that turn into scientists. Tourists taking photos that are analyzed by AI. So researchers can help life underwater flourish.
Many of us have hundreds of things on our minds at any moment.
Struggling to keep track of everything we need to do. But fortunately, there's one important thing we don't have to worry about remembering: breathing. When you breathe, you transport oxygen to the body's cells to keep them working and clear your system of the carbon dioxide that this work generates. Breathing, in other words, keeps the body alive. So, how do we accomplish this crucial and complex task without even thinking about it? The answer lies in our body's respiratory system. Like any machinery, it consists of specialized components and requires a trigger to start functioning. Here, the components are the structures and tissues making up the lungs, as well as the various other respiratory organs connected to them. And to get this machine moving, we need the autonomic nervous system, our brain's unconscious control center for the vital functions. As the body prepares to take in oxygen-rich air, this system sends a signal to the muscles around your lungs, flattening the diaphragm and contracting the intercostal muscles between your ribs to create more space for the lungs to expand. Air then whooshes into your nose and mouth, through your trachea, and into the bronchi that split at the trachea's base, with one entering each lung. Like tree branches, these small tubes divide into thousands of tinier passages called bronchioles. It's tempting to think of the lungs as huge balloons, but instead of being hollow, they're actually spongy inside, with the bronchioles running throughout the parenchyma tissue. At the end of each bronchiole is a little air sac called an alveolus, wrapped in capillaries full of red blood cells containing special proteins called hemoglobin. The air you've breathed in fills these sacs, causing the lungs to inflate. Here is where the vital exchange occurs. At this point, the capillaries are packed with carbon dioxide, and the air sacs are full of oxygen. But due to the basic process of diffusion, the molecules of each gas want to move to a place where there is a lower concentration of their kind. So as oxygen crosses over to the capillaries, the hemoglobin grabs it up, while the carbon dioxide is unloaded into the lungs. The oxygen-rich hemoglobin is then transported throughout the body via the bloodstream. But what do our lungs do with all that carbon dioxide? Exhale it, of course. The autonomic nervous system kicks in again, causing the diaphragm to ball up and the intercostal muscles to relax, making the chest cavity smaller and forcing the lungs to compress. The carbon dioxide-rich air is expelled, and the cycle begins again. So that's how these spongy organs keep our bodies efficiently supplied with air. Lungs inhale and exhale between 15 and 25 times a minute, which amounts to an incredible 10,000 liters of air each day. That's a lot of work, but don't sweat it. Your lungs and your autonomic nervous system have got it covered.
So wasn't that a great video? Tell me one thing that you learned. I always appreciate remembering or being reminded where the gas and oxygen exchange takes place in your lungs, because it's not at the top of your lungs. It's at the very end of all of those little branches, right? Anybody want to share one takeaway from the video for them? Just go ahead and unmute yourself because I can't see.
I like the part where he showed how the oxygen flows and everything opens up.
Yes, yes. And did you notice how many different systems he talked about? Right. So there's a lot going on in our bodies when it comes to breathing. And so I would say that everybody thinks respiratory health is pretty important, right? It's important to talk about. It's important to remember that we need and we can do things to keep it healthy and functioning. And those are all, we talk about and we hear regular exercise, eating well, and getting enough sleep every day are key components to a healthy lifestyle, but they directly affect the respiratory system. And also, as we know here, everybody here, essential oils can also help support feelings of clear airways and easy breathing. And so this is how I use AirX mainly in my diffusers. because the quality of the air that you take in definitely needs to be considered. Did you know that research suggests that air pollution at high concentrations may trigger asthma flare-ups? And that's because it inflames and irritates the lining and the receptors in a person's airways. This causes the airways to tighten and swell, which is a common symptom of asthma, right? And so our blend Air X was specifically formulated for the Chinese market because the air quality there is known to be a health hazard. Now, this oil can be used all three ways: aromatically, topically, and internally. When it comes to internal use, though, I prefer to place a drop inside my cup and then pour the hot water over it and then breathe in all the steam. It does have an internal or a supplemental fact on the bottle, which means that it's safe for internal use, okay? However, I personally can't handle it sublingual because when people say internal, a lot of times they'll just put the oils in their mouth. But to me, that burns my throat. So I use this internally, like in tea or in a empty gel capsule with a few other oils that I make sometimes when I'm having respiratory issues. One big contributing factor to my personal childhood diagnosis was secondhand smoke. So both of my parents actually smoked way back in the 50s and 60s. But my mother quit once she got pregnant the first time with my older sister, who's 2 years older. But my father continued to smoke until I was about 7 or 8. And I remember distinctly them fighting about this issue because my mom believed that the secondhand smoke was affecting me and my lungs. And of course, she was right, right? But my dad just couldn't seem to quit at the time. So he had agreed to only smoke outside of the house or in the garage. And that's how they managed that. But when I was younger, I did have a lot of exposure to secondhand smoke. Now, this was back in the 70s when the public wasn't really educated on the effects of secondhand smoke. So think about how many people, were affected that way. But the quality of the air is something that we definitely can improve by simply eliminating toxic air fresheners and replacing it with diffusing essential oils, right? Air X comes in a 15 ml and is only $32. So all of our oils are very comparably priced to any inhaler that a doctor would prescribe for you. So next up, we have Breathe. So here's how I use it. I put 2 drops in my hand and I make my own natural inhaler. One hand is flat and the other hand is cupped over it, and I just suck the oil in through my mouth. Now, some of you have learned this from me a long time ago and have benefited from this way of using this essential oil. But it's amazing how many people don't know that you can make your own natural inhaler with just a couple of drops of Breathe. And it really, really works. It goes down into your bronchial tubes. And so there is a little bit of tingliness that takes place. Sometimes when children are not used to doing this, they'll cough a little bit, but that's okay because that means that their body is working, right? And so Breathe essential oil is absolutely amazing for all types of respiratory issues. Now, I'm going to share another resource that I have up on a website. It is the World Health Organization's website. Take a look at this picture and let me know how you feel. Do you see that little boy there? Mentha, do you see that? You can see that? Okay, good. Yeah. So this is how asthma is treated in our modern healthcare system, right? Um, they're put on the little nebulizer, inhalers. And so this is the website that I wanted to share because here's some key facts about asthma. It's a major non-communicable disease affecting both children and adults. It's an inflammation and a narrowing of the small airways in the lungs. It's affected an estimated 262 million people. And the way they treat it is through medication for life. So if you're a child and you get diagnosed with asthma, like I was a long time ago, I already had it in my head that I was going to be on medication for my entire life, right? And eventually I was like, no, this is not the way I want to live. I need to get off of these meds. So as you scroll down here, of course, there's an overview, symptoms, which we all know about, a persistent cough, wheezing, shortness of breath, tight muscles, some of the causes, but treatment. Notice what it says. Asthma cannot be cured, but there are several treatments available. I kind of disagree with that statement. I don't believe that it is a matter of curing a disease. It's a matter of believing in our body and how it can definitely work better if we give it the proper things. Does that make sense? It's a matter of believing that our body can work better. And it is a matter of giving our bodies the proper things so those correct triggers can be switched on. Okay. So using doTERRA essential oils is a better way. It offers people so much hope. And people could use both the oils and the inhalers. But notice the bottom of the screen here, they have a little area that's entitled self-care. There's only 2 small little paragraphs. But oh, how important that is, right? We always come back around to that subject. Are you taking care of yourself? Do you recognize how you feel about things? Are you letting your anxiety get out of control, right? So people with asthma, it says, and their families need education to understand more about their asthma. This includes their treatment options, triggers to avoid, and how to manage their symptoms at home, which is the most beautiful thing about having doTERRA in your life, because you can manage this at home. Okay. So Breathe is only $28 and would be a wonderful gift for anyone who needs this kind of help. Don't you think? We could probably all think about one person that could use some Breathe oil. Okay, so the last oil that I want to highlight here is cardamom. Throw up a heart if you use this oil. Many of us use it maybe like as a flavoring in our coffee, maybe not for respiratory issues, but it is in our blend Breathe, which, by the way, you cannot take internally. You can only use Breathe aromatically and topically. But you do have an option for an internal use, which is AirX or cardamom. Okay. Now, cardamom is known to help with digestive issues and respiratory benefits. But the reason why they list cardamom when it comes to asthma is because of its antispasmodic properties. So, you know, when you start wheezing or you have an asthma attack, you're going to cough a lot, right? So cardamom can help break that down a lot, and used all 3 ways: aromatically, topically, and internally. Okay. It only costs $31. You need a drop. You have 85 drops in this bottle, so look at it as 85 doses. Okay. It is a seed, and we source it from Guatemala, which I absolutely love. doTERRA began sourcing cardamom essential oil back in 2014. And it was a 6-year transformation of a remote region of land there to get small scale farmers up and running growing cardamom. There is a wonderful video on YouTube called Behind the Bottle. Behind the Bottle. Okay. I think it's only 2 minutes, but you could learn all about how they source it. It's a co-impact sourcing oil. So it is the reason why I actually cherish this particular oil. I know that when I purchase a bottle of cardamom, I'm having a bigger impact in the world, and I'm supporting the small farmers in that area to continue growing cardamom for us. So it is a beautiful, beautiful oil. And sometimes I just take a little bit and put it on my tongue. Okay, so the last couple things I want to say is that Air X tends to like go up when you breathe it. It will clear the nose, it will clear any brain fog. And breathe tends to go down and work on the lungs here. So we have lots to choose from, right? In conclusion, I am happy to say that doTERRA has changed my life when it comes to asthma, because I no longer depend on 3 inhalers to breathe every single day. And the best thing is that I have released the fear that comes along with that, because having asthma is pretty scary. You have to have your inhalers, right? So I've been with doTERRA for 9 years. I was using the oils and inhalers for quite a few of those years. Within the past 4 years, I have only relied on my body and doTERRA's oils. I no longer carry the inhalers with me. I was able to actually dispose of them, which is huge on the emotional side. I'm more confident that my body can work properly because I'm giving it the right stuff, right? Of course, there's many lifestyle changes that I made that I encourage others to look into, such as eliminating certain foods that trigger an attack. I see a chiropractor and an acupuncturist regularly. I do daily grounding and tapping and box breathing exercises. So there's lots of other things that we could add to help us deal with asthma. I've also processed the anger and worked on the emotional side of asthma. Now, we don't have enough time to talk about that today, but that's important to address when it comes to healing your body. And now I am healthy enough to actually help other people deal with this issue as well. So it's been wonderful to be able to share these oils with people and then hear their success where, oh my gosh, yes, it worked. Thank you for sharing Breathe oil with me. So I love doTERRA for helping me deal with my asthma. I'm going to open it up now for any other stories of how many of us? 7 people that showed. Sometimes we have like 25, 30 people, huh? Other times we have just a few of us. Catalina, you want to share?
So with the Breathe oil, that was one of my first oils that got me hooked with doTERRA with On Guard. And I just love it. I don't suffer from asthma or anything like that, but it helps me with my anxiety and to help me sleep. For sinus pressure too, I suffer from that, allergies. So that has helped me with that. I know it has helped, I know my mom and my husband too for snoring, which is really good for that. So we we use that a lot. I put it on over his nose, on his neck, under his feet, and on his pillow, and diffuse it as well. So that has helped us with breathe too.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. Now, before Breathe, what other types of things did you use?
So for my allergies and all that medicine, I had to use pills. when I went, I had to go to allergist because I had a lot of allergies and a lot of pain. And I was diagnosed with, I was allergic to everything, basically. She basically told me if you go outside, you have to wear a mask every time you go outside. And I was put onto nasal sprays. And I was scared. I was like, oh my gosh, all that chemicals are just going to go up in my brain. And she said I had to use that for the rest of my life. And then I got to know doTERRA. I started getting into it, and I learned what to do for my allergies, and I haven't used no nasal sprays ever since.
Love, love, love to hear stories like that. Thank you so much for sharing. Yes, there is a better way. And so I love sharing these oils with people that it's going to help. Anybody else have questions or want to share a story? Okay. Wait, Marcia, were you gonna?
Oh no. I started using Breathe from the time you introduced it to me. And I was still in Sacramento, and I have not had to use the inhaler since. So, but that was one of the things I carried even in my car, because one time I started to have an attack, and everybody said, "Don't you have one in your car?" And I thought, no, I never thought of it. But then this girl called me. Her name is Mapuana, and she introduced me to doTERRA. And I haven't had. It's funny that in my car I found this inhaler, and I thought, "Oops, don't need you anymore." Boop. So, so that was great. That was, I think, the beginning of my really being caught up in doTERRA, because I thought this is a big load off your shoulders if you're asthmatic. So yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
It is a big load. I haven't had an asthma attack in years until, well, I would say maybe like 3 months ago, I had a little attack. And I remember lying down going, is this really an asthma attack, or am I allergic to something? Was there something in the air? Did I eat? Going through the process of asking yourself questions, right? And then I
Yeah.
was like, oh, okay, no, I can't breathe. Let me get up. And
Yeah.
breathe actually didn't work for me. And so when that happens, I break down breathe into the single oils. So I layered on eucalyptus and
Yeah.
took that in for a few minutes.
Mhm.
And then I layered on rosemary and took that in for a few minutes. And then the next oil, cardamom, took that in for a few minutes. So there's even a way to edit the application of essential oils for an asthma attack, or the onset, or even if you're in it. So I love, love, love using it for that kind of reason. So
Yep.
all right, everybody, thank you so much for joining me again on a Friday. That was fun. Our time is up, and I have a citrus bloom to mail out to one lucky winner. So I think Sharon Dunbar deserves an oil. Congratulations. You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're
I
welcome.
enjoy your classes. I learn a lot from you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, good. I'm so glad. I'm so glad to hear that. All right, I'll get this mailed out to you. Okay. Okay,
Okay.
everybody. Thank you so much for showing up on another Friday. We'll see you next week. Have a great weekend.
Okay. Thank you. You too. Bye.
Bye-bye.